Hello and welcome to another video from
Absolute Gamer. Nerd!
All right, today we have our first episode review recap of House of the Dragon Season 2. Of course, I have Mike from Lunch Money Comics here. Join me, Mike. What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Feeling great.
Yeah.
Happy
All right.
Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you as well. Yes, exactly. Good
What
point.
a Father's Day treat to watch
Yes.
that at the end of the day. It was pretty cool.
Exactly, especially that ending, which we are going to get into, obviously, the
Yeah.
big part of the ending. But we're first, I want to know, like, just give me your overall kind of out of 5 stars. What would you give that episode? Kind of some general thoughts.
I gotta save some room. I'll give it a 4, just because I don't want to give something a 5. I have high hopes for the season, right? I can't go off the bat. I mean, I absolutely loved it. You know, my first thought was, man, did I miss this? Right? I'm not a big TV watcher anymore. I don't like getting invested in shows, even if I know they're gonna be good. I just don't have the time. So it better be damn good if I'm gonna spend my hard-earned time watching it. But I remember thinking, like, God, this is the type of TV I die for, man. It was so good to actually sit down and enjoy that again. So yeah, it was good to be back.
Yeah, no, I 4 out of 5 was kind of my review. Not that it couldn't have been a 5. We'll get to why.
We'll get to there's a couple of
why-
nitpicks I know where you and
yeah.
I guys have the same one, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, unlike you though, I love getting into a show. So
Okay.
this is just perfect to come back. And
Yeah.
otherwise, like outside of the few things we'll get into, like I thought it just did a really good job of reestablishing kind of like the board where everyone's at.
yeah.
And I was digging it. And I
Yeah,
really
the
looking
recap
forward
was
to it.
fabulous. Like I was saying briefly before we jumped on, I made a couple mistakes last time, and then during the recap, I'm like, oh yeah, even knowing the stuff front and back, you do forget some things. So that recap was perfect for my wife, who's not as into it as me. It was great. She loved it. So
Yeah,
that was
I
really
mean,
useful.
especially for something as detailed as this, like it's so
Yeah.
easy to forget those little details.
Right.
But right off the bat, I was wrong. The music to the intro was the same, but
Right.
the graphics were different. It was
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
sewing, threading thing, which kind of took you through the entire history.
Right.
I felt like I should watch it one time. I'm not going to watch it. I'll hit the skip
Right.
next time. But it took you through the whole Valyrian history up until that point, which I don't know. Just curious, did you like that? Not like it?
I liked it better than the last opening they had. I like the idea of the tapestry, like the Bayo tapestry, like the idea, like that was a cool concept. But visually, it wasn't as striking as I feel like it could have been. Like the old Game of Thrones ones were like I was riveted watching the map.
Yeah.
Like it was so cool and interesting. I just thought, oh, that's neat. Like it was that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all right. It wasn't
Yes,
like amazing.
I agree. Better than season 1, but not even close to like Game of Thrones.
No.
Okay, so first off, it opened up at Winterfell's what a show, but then it really was at the wall. So first off, I wish I would say when the music for the Starks comes on,
Oh,
man,
yes.
I love it. It's so
Yeah. I
good.
forgot about it. Honestly, as I
Yeah.
heard it, I was like, oh man, it's amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. It was pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
So that being said, like the Starks in all general, like especially at this point in this story,
Mhm.
are rather uninvolved. I thought it was an interesting choice to start there. Definitely seemed like it was like let's give the fans a little retaste of the Starks kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, it was 2 things. It was one to get us excited, right? Hear the
Yeah.
theme, it pulls us right in. I mean, you're right. Later on, there's more. I think it was setting up the Winter Wolves, which I'm sure we'll see. We definitely Craig and Sark talks about that. But I think mostly it was because I think it was something that we need to see last year, but it would have been awkward to fit it in. So last year, the different Rhaenyra's sons go off to do diplomatic missions. One gets killed pretty awfully, and then the other one, you don't know what happens when he heads north. It would have been weird to show him do that. He doesn't know his brother's dead at this point, so they couldn't
Yeah.
shoehorn that in. They want to end it with that huge cliffhanger of her finding out. So I think it's a little bit of an overlap. They said, all right, we got
Yeah.
to show this happen. Because he's an important character, right? So he's showing that he can be diplomatic. He's getting, side, people on their side. And I think it sets up the Winter Wolves. But yeah, we might not see Craig and Stark. No, no spoiler alert, hopefully. I don't think we're going to see the guy the rest of the season.
Yeah,
I'd be shocked.
if they did, it'd be completely something new. And then obviously they remind like in the books they actually go to Winterfell, not the Wall.
Yeah, they just did the wall just to be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the one thing I noted that when they were standing on that like lookout point, he says when King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne were here, King Jaehaerys was not there. It was just
Good catch.
Alysanne and her
Yeah.
dragon. Her dragon would not go north of the wall. She tried a
I
few
remember
times.
that. Yeah, yep.
But it was
Good.
King Jaehaerys was not there. He was on, doing some other thing. So they did make that change.
Ah,
Yeah, but let's pick it up from there. So from that, I mean, he just kind of got right into it from that. And
Oh yeah.
again, just brings you back in the game. I will say just real quick, I think he's probably not mentioned as much. I love what's the actor's name that plays Otto?
Rhys Ifans.
Yes. Dude, the
Yeah,
guy's so good.
he's so good. I mean, he's good in everything. He's a great character actor, but he kills that role so well.
Yeah. And
He
I
does.
love his just dialogue. It's so he's like, errors were made.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it's good that he plays it like that, because not only is he like playing the straight man, like the opposed to the crazy Targaryens. That's the whole thing. You need the hand of the king is always usually the voice of reason. So he plays that well, while also having the shrewdness of someone who has he wants power of his own, right? So I think he does a great job at that, trying to keep the Targaryen craziness in check, but also there's just enough that he keeps hidden under the surface. He's up to something. I think he kills it. He's so good at that role.
He's so good. Again, also we get that early on. You get the Helena forecasting, but no one's paying attention to her. Granted, she speaks a little, obviously in metaphor almost, but in this case, it was almost literal. But no one pays attention to her. I thought it was funny. That was also a change from the book in that they made Aegon a bit of a doting father on his son.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think works well with the end of this episode.
Yeah, of course.
What's going to happen? His reaction after.
Yeah, you have to. But I honestly, I guess I want to talk about Aegon a little bit, because he's a goofball. And last year, he just seems like a complete goofball. I actually think they did a really good job with him this first episode, because the actor is actually pretty darn likable. He's funny in a dark way, So like he is kind of an idiot. He's way out of his element being king, but he brings like a little bit of levity. And that scene with him on the throne where people are petitioning him, and he's just bad at it. And Otto like trying to be like, "Excuse me, sire," That was played so well. I thought that was really good at showcasing both their characters. But it actually was the first time in the show it endeared me a little bit to him. A little bit. I mean, he's a jerk. He's his son's messing around at the small council, and he's letting him do it. But I know it humanized him a little bit, and for the first time, I was like, okay, this is good. That it's not just a simple villain kind of turn. So I thought they did a great job.
I also liked how he gave Tywin Lannister. I mean, because like Tywin Lannister's obviously just that like lick spittle type character. Like, oh, I'm always gonna please the like. Yeah. He's like he could read that guy like a book, and so he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking screw with this guy. And he's like, give him a piggyback around.
Yeah, exactly. No, it made me like him a lot more. I really enjoyed that whole scene. So I think they did a lot for the character of King Aegon. Absolutely, this episode.
Yeah. Other thing that they added in was obviously the hooking up of Alicent and Kristen Cole, which I don't think. Well, yes, of course, happened multiple times in the episode, but I think actually will play. It actually worked well, especially in the sense of in the second time. Obviously, we'll get to what happened while they were doing it.
Right.
What other kind of opening thoughts did you have?
Well, what I like about that one too is the fact that she tells him after that first scene, she's like, "We can't do this anymore." He's like, "Okay." And then you see him at the end. So then you realize at the end, like, how many times has she had that conversation with him? Like dozens, right? Like everyone just kind of knows that the sort of relationships, how they go. She can't say no to him. So that was cool. I mean, he is a piece of work. I mean, he's one of those. He's doing a great job, the actor too. As you'll find out, like everyone knows he's a bad guy in general. But he's an interesting character, and I love how they play, the honorable knight, like he still thinks of himself as that honorable knight literally while he's dishonoring himself.
Yeah.
He plays that so well. I don't know. I just really liked it. I think the character's so well written.
Yeah. I even liked in that scene how he's like, "Can you reattach my cloak?"
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
Yeah. That like, it works so well.
It is perfect. Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. So from there, where did it go? Like trying to think. Where did it go from after that scene?
Well, we go to I thought it was amazing. You only get one line from Rhaenyra the whole episode.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So that you see her mourning. She's looking for the remains of her son. The wing washes up in a piece of his cloak, and they all have a sort of like a funeral scene. And she just, you don't see her much, but you can see she's mourning. That was pretty great. You get her aunt meeting up with Daemon, and he tries telling her what to do, and she's like, "You're not the king. You can't. You don't tell me what to do." I thought that was a brilliant scene from both these hot-headed characters. That was really cool.
Also, just real quick, that kind of whole area where the dragons fly into on dragon. That's a whole new set.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was. No, I mean, it makes sense that they would have something like that, but that was cool. That was very
Yeah, like
cool.
when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's kind of rad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that is, again, that is also something that's added is the fact that, like, in the book, I don't remember Rhaenyra going to try and like find her son or anything like that. And when that happens, when they find out, Damon is already gone.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
at
right.
Harrenhal Hill.
Yeah, but I think the reason they do it, they needed him there to play the part of the spy master. You know, everything that happens at the end of the event, at the end of the episode, he set up. You know, he finds his old flame there. What's her? I forget her name already.
Saria.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, she's like the like a spy master, right?
Yeah.
And he uses her. So I think I like the idea that he's trying to please Rhaenyra by doing what he thinks is right to help her. He just wants vengeance immediately, right?
Yeah.
And it's just getting that. So I actually think it works well when he's there seeing her in pain. I think that works. So they're just delaying him leaving. But I thought
There is
that
one
worked really
component of that I do want to bring up, though, about that him being there does change.
well.
But again, before we get into the big stuff, what other kind of opening stuff did you like?
Geez, I'm trying to remember. The stuff at the end of the episode, I thought it was a long episode, so a lot of the stuff I was expecting happened later. So there was a lot of establishing. We see Lord Valerian, who we haven't seen in a while. I feel like, so that was good to see him with the limp. You know, so I'd like to see how that plays out with those guys who's working for him. That was interesting. You know, they set the seeds up for later stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can't remember that Adam Hull or Alan Hull, and then the brother is the one that ends up riding the dragon.
Yes, one of them.
Yeah,
whichever one it is.
I think very well likely could combine the two characters like that.
Maybe, very possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, and with that being said, we should also, if I didn't warn you before, spoilers are about to come out.
Oh yeah.
We're not holding anything back.
One thing I loved was when you see them mourning. You know, they're mourning Lucerys. Then you have Alicent saying a prayer in the sept, and she lights the candle for him. Which again. Yeah.
It's good that like it shows that like she doesn't want it to go to war.
Right.
Like she wants this to be peacefully resolved, even though we're well past that now.
Well, again, and for those who haven't caught on yet, it's about these two women who were best friends who get forced into this horrible war, where it seems like all the people around them, particularly men, are just making bad decisions. This is a story of escalation. But largely, they're still the same people that are just getting burnt by the situation around them, getting worse and worse and worse. You know, series of unfortunate events. But at her heart, Alicent's still a mom. She's still a grandmother. And, you know, so it's like she must feel for Rhaenyra, and she, you know, of course she feels for her. You know, I thought that's very important to show.
Yeah. Now, one thing I was going to ask: do you think so? We have that scene with Larys the Clubfoot.
Oh yeah,
and he comes up to Alicent. He's like, "I meant to tell you this sooner, but you were indisposed."
Right.
Now, obviously, he's like the Varys of this story. Like he's the
and Littlefinger combined. Yeah, he's like
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, we could assume he knows what's up when it comes to Alicent.
That's what he was saying. He was telling her. He knew what was going on. Yeah.
And then with that, he then is in a scene with Aegon, and he's telling Aegon, "You should dump Otto because he's been your father's hand. Like, you need someone for you."
Right.
Do you think he was doing that so that Cole would not have the time to hook up with Alicent because he is in love with Alicent?
Oh no, I didn't think that at all. I just thought that was just the machinations. He wants to get rid of Otto because Otto is too savvy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could be a part of that. I did like that whole thing because in that basically 2 sentences he says, "I know what you're doing, whatever," and then he's like, "I took care of all the other people that are spies or potentially," and they're all, basically we killed them all. You know, like they're no longer breathing our air. That was clever. Again, this is how you know it's good writing, right, guys? Because like. So many of those characters were barely, they were in a scene or two. They have to reestablish who this character was, what their motivations are, what's going on the rest of the season. And if they're really well written, you can do it in a couple of sentences. And Larys is another one of those characters that you remind immediately what kind of guy he is, what his savviness as a spy is, what he's capable of, and then how he's a backstabber, all within a scene and a half. So it was very well done. Yeah. And the actor's great. I think the actor is fantastic too.
Yeah. I mean, all the actors are all, I mean, there's not one I'd be like, nah.
Right.
The other scene I really liked was the scene of Aemond and Cole, like kind of just like chilling, like having a beer and like making war plans. Because it's clear after that small council meeting that they both are a more aggressive. Like you have Otto and you have Alicent. They're like, no, we need to exercise caution.
Right.
Be careful with where the pieces move. You know, obviously we're in a war, but we're not gonna just full head of steam into it.
Exactly.
And those two are like, no, let's bull rush this thing. We got this
Right.
this house. And I thought that was a cool scene just to come in.
That was cool because we know Aemon, what he's capable of, and how dangerous he is. But I like the fact that Chris, he didn't have his cloak on; he's just hanging out. They're just talking like a couple of buddies. I thought that was interesting. And then Otto comes in and excuses him. What I thought was really cool about that, he just tells Daemon straight up. He's like, "You are the single most dangerous, player in this game. You're the most dangerous piece on the board. You cannot do anything recklessly, right?"
Yeah.
And as the rest of the episode shows, they're so casual. They're just hanging out. So is the king with his buddies drinking on the Iron Throne. Everyone's chilling out. They did not see any of that stuff coming. It easily could have been Daemon. And Otto was right. Otto's like, you got to be more careful. And we see what happens in the episode. It all falls into place. Even when they're all just hanging out, bad things can still happen, right? They let their guard down. So I thought that was, again, it's just wonderfully written. Every single scene in this.
Yeah, and that just the way you said that, I loved that part when Otto is like, everything the king says is heard, or something like that. He said.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about obviously the big event. So last week when we talked about the preview, we obviously mentioned Blood and Cheese is going to have a Blood and Cheese. Didn't say what Blood and Cheese was, but we did say like, get ready.
Right.
And let's kind of get this. So what I was mentioning earlier, when one thing I didn't like with Daemon being at Dragonstone. So in the book, he's at Harrenhal. Rhaenyra finds out by herself, but then Daemon sends a message himself, and it just says, "An eye for an eye, a son for a son. Lucerys will be avenged." And I thought that was just a cool moment in the books, and you didn't get that obviously with him being there, but not a huge deal.
Well, he said it because later Blood says it, right? He says they said a son for son. Because remember, they ask, what if Daemon's not there? What if we can't find him? And then you don't see what Daemon says. Clearly, he said, then you pick another the next day or whatever, a son for a son. But you don't get the line. You're right. You don't get the line, which we are honestly a little odd decision. Maybe it's more of a cliffhanger to know what the heck they're going to try to do. But I did think that was odd. He could have said it in person. It still would work. But I did like how Rhaenyra says, all she says, one line is, "I want Daemon Targaryen." And that just for saying that is a green light to Daemon. For all the people that are there, you got to kill him. I want him dead.
No rules apply.
It doesn't matter. You kill him. And I thought that was really well done. And it's Daemon who then goes ahead and makes that further. And you got to imagine, similar to how Alicent feels horrible about Lucerys dying, you got to think Rhaenyra is going to be devastated to find out a little kid died. And again, knowing something was going to happen, I don't give spoilers to my wife. I told her, this is a bad episode. This is squeamish, right? I didn't know how they were going to film it. I think we're going to talk about this in a second. I didn't know how they were going to film that scene. Obviously, guys, this is Game of Thrones. They show a lot of violence, a lot of sexuality, but there's a taboo with violence towards kids, and you got to be careful with it, right? I don't want to see that stuff. No one wants to see it. So I was curious, and I was wondering how much they were going to downplay leading up to that. So I don't know if Daemon's message in that whole, maybe I was wondering if that was why they didn't say that son for a son right off the bat. I don't know if they were trying to build suspense or just so we don't signal to the audience, they're going to try to kill a little kid. I don't know. It's an interesting choice, but still, the ending was pretty rough, and I was dreading it.
And I mean, and to be fair, in the books again, Aegon is not, at least from, again, the book is not a historic accuracy. It's just a story retold. But the way they make you believe is that Daemon, he specifically wanted Aegon's heir.
Correct.
Because it was like, you took our heir, because was one of theirs. Sorry, Jace is still alive. But yeah, Aemon was not a consideration. But obviously, that's something they changed in the show, which is, again, I thought worked very well. Now, what I did think was odd is that scene when he's talking to the Ret Catcher. So he's already kind of got Blood on board, and he takes Blood to meet Cheese, and he's explaining the situation. And he's like, "Don't you know these tunnels well?" And then Cheese replies, "I know them better than my own cock."
Yes, right. Yeah.
It's like, okay, that all makes sense. But then when Blood and Cheese are kind of going through the castle, Blood's like, or no, Cheese is like, "Well, I can't go upstairs. I don't know it very well, and I'm not allowed up there." This is like, then why did you have that scene where you told him you were like, that was odd to me?
I interpret it differently. So I thought it was interesting. Cheese, I felt like it was weird how it was done, because I thought he was actually having some apprehension at that point. I thought he didn't want to do it. They sneak
Oh,
past, they
okay.
get past. Yeah, I thought at that point he was having second doubts. So he was kind of lying, oh, I don't really know which way. And then that's when Blood said, he's like, fine, it's this way. And he brought him right up. So he knew where he was going. He did know it. So I think
Yeah,
he was
that's a good
afraid
point.
or he was lying. Yeah. So I don't know if he thought like they were, I don't know. But what throws it off to me, so I said, oh, they're going to play this differently. They're going to play them off each other. Maybe he's going to have second regrets when they get to the family, the royal family. But he doesn't. And so this is one of the differences. Can we talk about this now? The difference between the story that was told and what we see in this show. In the story, they get both kids, and they say to the queen.
Well, also
good.
so first off, in the story, they have 3 kids.
3 kids.
They
You're right.
have
3.
the twins, the son and the daughter that are in
Yep.
the show,
Yep.
and then they have a younger kid. So the
Correct, the younger
twins
one.
are like 6, I think, in the books.
Right. Yep.
And the other one is 2.
Right.
And they're awake.
Yes. And they're awake.
And I believe Alicent is also in the room when this happens.
Really?
I think so.
I'll have to look that up.
But regardless, like you have,
Really?
yeah, you have Helena there, and then you have the 3 kids, and they're awake,
Yes.
and he makes them
Yep.
choose. So you get a couple of things there. One, the kids all understand what's going on. Helena is terrified because one of her children is being fed in a kid, and then she I believe in the books she tries no, take my life, blah blah blah, and then Cheese
take me instead, right?
Cheese threatens to rape the daughter and then kill them if she doesn't. So she's kind of forced.
She has to. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought, again, it's the violence towards kids. You're not gonna insinuate you're gonna rape a 6-year-old. Like they're just not gonna do it. So I'm fine.
I'm fine with the leaving the rape part out.
Right.
I was disappointed that they really stripped out the choice, the Sophie's choice.
That was it. So
Helena.
that was the one thing I think anyone who knows the story is going to kind of complain about, because it's interesting how it's posted. They ask her which one, and she chooses the younger one, so that the heir is kept alive. Right? And it's an agonizing choice.
And it even goes in her thoughts. She's like, he won't understand. He's too young to even remember. No big deal.
She thought no big deal, and then of course what they do in the book is they say, obviously we're picking whatever you don't choose, and they kill the one that she didn't want, right?
And she's horrified. Even tells the young kid, how do you feel that your mom picked you to die?
And that sticks with the kid too. The kid feels like he was his mother. Yeah, exactly. So the kid's old enough to understand what's going on. Yeah, he says your mom chose chose you to die. So whatever. So that I thought was actually, it's dark, obviously, but it's kind of cool. I thought that was really interesting. None of that happens. And this is entirely different. She chooses the older kid, and then she's telling the truth.
Yeah.
That's an interesting change, and I'm not exactly sure why.
Well, not only that, it kind of takes away a lot of the tragic kid dies. Tragic as hell. But in the book, the sense of tragedy is so much greater. Not to mention, because she had to make that choice, it absolutely shatters her.
It shatters her, right. She was given an impossible choice, and it still backfired on her, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And here she picked up the daughter and then ran away and was just they killed the boy. And it's just it doesn't hit as much. And
no,
this is my big complaint.
And when I read it in the book, at that moment when they kill, in the book, she loses her mind. At that point, she's broken. She's done, right?
Yeah.
And she breaks later. We'll talk about that another time. But she breaks further. But you didn't get that impression. She just said, all right, I'm making out with my life. And then she walks away, and there's that really tense, oh, what's going to happen? Are they going to chase her down the hallway? And she was just almost calm. I know she's kind of a psycho anyway. She's a weird person. But that was weird. I feel like that wasn't the best decision. It's much more horrifying. I hate to say it's more horrifying in the version I think we read in the book. So I don't really know why they made that decision. I was thankful they didn't show it. I didn't think they would.
I think they would. I thought they were going to do either a shadow kind of situation.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or from a weird angle showing her face.
Her face, and then maybe blood splatters on her face.
Right.
Or something.
I mean, I'm happy they didn't do that. But that being said, the sounds were awful. That would, that was oh, okay, it's still pretty bad, guys. So I was grateful of that. But again, it's just a weird decision. I don't know if they were trying to tame the situation. I mean, it's already awful, but is it were they taking something away by not making it that awful that she made that choice? They're taking away the fact that the kid who wasn't chosen feels it. I don't know if they were trying to, I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
So what's interesting is you and I have the same opinion. We're why did they do it that way? It kind of really took away from it. So after the show ended, I chatted with a couple of friends of mine that are show fans, not book readers,
Yep.
though.
Mhm.
And they immediately were like, "Oh man, that was crazy," and I was like, it was kind of disappointing for me. And I explained what happened in the books, and they both responded, "I'm glad they didn't do that because that would have been too much for me."
I
So
think it's too
it's
much.
an interesting, yeah, it's an interesting
All
taste,
right.
like someone that has
No,
read the
yeah.
book versus someone that's just watching the show.
I mean, I knew it was too much. I knew, when you read it, I was dreading this episode. I've been dreading this, and I never warned my wife. I just said, listen, something awful is going to happen at the end of this. I just warning you, okay? Because because it bothers me. It's definitely going to bother her. So the whole thing was softened. So maybe the choice, and then the deliberate going against that choice, and the psychological effect it has on the youngest kid and her, plus the situation towards the daughter, like it's already too much. That is just makes it so much more horrifying. So I think they just made everything as light as they possibly do it while still honoring what actually happened. So maybe that's the answer, and that's fine. Honestly,
Yeah, and then my one question in regard to that though is like, since the end of the last season, after Lucerys died, everyone, when they do these videos and things like that, I was like, "Oh man!" But then just wait for blood and cheese. Just wait
yeah,
for blood and cheese.
right.
So they really let it get hyped up,
They did.
and it really, as a book reader, it really made me think like they're gonna obviously be able to get away with this, how they get away with this, but
Yeah,
like it's still gonna be just crazy.
right.
And so like we didn't get. I mean, again, like I was a little let down, but again, I think it makes sense for those that
I
are on
do.
the show only.
Yeah. I understand. I guess I understand why they made the decision. And again, I'm kind of thankful in that case. But yeah, there were some pretty cool parts of it that, the son for a son thing. I mean, that was the name of the episode. We get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a little bit different. Maybe it's just to kind of mess with our expectations of those of us who knew what was going to happen. It could be as simple as that as well. But it was definitely, my point is, it was treated tastefully, as tasteful as you possibly can.
As
And it was
tastefully as you
definitely
can.
tamer than I was expecting. And
Yeah.
maybe that was what was delivered. Because again, you guys, doesn't matter how rated R it is, you cannot really depict violence against kids, and you shouldn't.
No,
You shouldn't. I'm
no,
sorry.
100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. I'm curious, like, it'd be interesting to hear George R. R. Martin's thoughts on this take versus his book. Because I mean, he's obviously
Interesting.
involved in the show creation more so even than in Game of Thrones. So I wonder.
Right.
I mean, he obviously probably had
Yeah, he
some
signed
sign
off on
off
it.
or approval of this. So I wonder. But I wonder how he honestly was like, well, obviously we can't do it how I wrote it. So
Right. Yeah. But honestly, it could have been a decision while they were filming it. We don't
yeah,
know that. Maybe that was original, and they were all watching, going, "That's messed up."
yeah,
Maybe they
very
just
true.
wasn't playing right, and they're like, "We can't do this, guys." It could have been as simple as that. The actors just refused to do it, and that
Yeah.
would have been okay.
But
Yeah.
with all that in mind, again, earlier we talked about like how Aegon was doting on his son, which is not a thing in the books. That though all now sets him up to really
Oh,
spiral once he
exactly.
gets the
Yep.
news.
Yeah.
So
I'm still trying to see if Allison was there. Was she there? You might be. I think
uh,
you might be right.
yeah. With
Which
that's
makes
why
it way worse. Yeah.
it's right. It's because he's heating Otto. He's heating his mom a little bit, being like, okay, fine. You guys want because he wants to like, let's go burn the blockade. Let's go
Yeah.
smash them there, right? Now he's gonna be right with Aemon, right with
Oh yeah.
Kristen
Yep.
Cole, and he's like, fuck it, let's
Yep.
wreck shop.
Yep. Again, this is a story of unreasonable escalation, and
Yeah.
as again these women watch this just unfold around them, and I think this is exactly right. And Aegon goes from being just a drunk goofball, doesn't know what he's doing, to someone out for vengeance. And I
Yeah.
think we saw it in the preview a little bit. That's clearly where they're going. So that was cool. It's why it was important to show him doting on his son. So it's not just it's a slight because it's my heir. No, he cared for the kid. So
Yeah.
I think I think we're going to see this. And now, right, no one's going to tell the king what to do. Otto's not going to be able to keep him back. Him and Damon are going to war. So yeah, it's exciting. They did a great job with it.
Yeah. No, great first episode. Any last parting thoughts?
I'm happy that episode's over with. Yeah. Yeah. Again, the blood and cheese characters are interesting because they're a mystery, right? They're only known by that in the story. You don't know really anything about them. You kind of imagine them in your mind what they're like. I thought they did a good job with them. So it's interesting to see how it played out. It's kind of cool. Again, they have a lot of wiggle room because they don't need to flesh it out. It's just a outline of a history, and you can do whatever you want with it. So I'm just happy they picked again the most tasteful way possible to do that. It was horrifying enough as it was, And now hopefully we have a lot more of just adult on adult violence. For the rest-
Yeah.
Dragon on dragon, right?
I mean, the thing is though, when you get into the whole story, there are a lot of kids that when you go from beginning to end, there are a lot of kids that really get
Well,
some,
yeah, I guess we're still not done with that. Yeah, I did my
yeah.
so after the episode was over, I told my wife like it gets a lot better. She's like, all right, so no more killing kids. And I was like, well, they always age them up, and they did in the original the Game of Thrones show
Yeah.
too. They aged up all the kids because you just can't do stuff like that to 10-year-old kids. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's kind of all the thoughts I had for episode 1. Obviously, though, I thought it was, again, 4 out of 5. I thought it was a great opening episode, really kind of set the stage, put everyone where they're at, kind of establish where everyone's at, and can really move forward from here going on.
Yeah, I am definitely chomping at the bit for the next episode. What a tease, huh? What
Yeah.
a tease. Now I'm in, man. I'm ready.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, and thanks for checking us out. Again, we'll be here next week to recap episode 2. Let us know in the comments what you thought. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Peace out.